Solution of question number 13. In this question we have a function and we have to find the value of cot inverse of limit x tending to 0 fx to the whole square. So firstly we have to evaluate this limit because we don't know whether our function is continuous at x equal to 0 or not. If our function is continuous at x equal to 0, then the value of limit is nothing but 1. Okay, so firstly we will evaluate this limit. So for this we will compute left hand limit and right hand limit at x equal to 0. So when we evaluate left hand limit, then we have limit x tending to 0 negative fx is equal to limit h tending to 0 according as the definition of the function limit h tending to 0 of square root of fractional part of minus h times cot of fractional part of minus h. So to evaluate this limit, firstly we have to find the values of fractional part of minus h. Okay, so fractional part of minus h, this can be written as fractional part of minus 1 plus 1 minus h. So here minus 1 is the integer, then 1 minus h is the value lies between 0 and 1. So basically the fractional part of minus h is nothing but 1 minus h. So then we have limit h tending to 0 is square root of 1 minus h cot of 1 minus h. So now we can evaluate this limit. So the value of this limit is nothing but square root of cot 1. Okay. Now we will compute right hand limit. So the right hand limit is given as limit x tending to 0 positive fx, that will be equal to limit h tending to 0 tan square fractional part of h divided by h square minus greatest integer of h to the whole square according as the definition of function when x is greater than 0. Okay. So similarly as above, here also fractional part of here we have fractional part of h, and also we know h lies between 0 and 1. So fractional part of h is nothing but h, and the greatest integer of h is also 0 because h is just greater than 0. So when we evaluate this limit, then the value of this limit is equal to 1. Now we observe that value of left hand limit is nothing but square root of cot 1 and value of right hand limit is equal to 1. So both the limits are finitely exist, but they are not equal. Hence our limit does not exist. That's why the value of cot inverse limit x tending to 0 fx to the whole square does not exist. So our option is D. Solution of question number 19. In this question we have 4 options and we have to choose the correct one. That is, among these 4 options we have only one option is correct. So we'll check one by one. So take the option A. In the option A we have there are infinitely many one linear transformation from R4 to R3. Okay. Now here TBA map from R4 to R3. So here domain space is R4, so its dimension is 4. Now we know dimension of domain space is equal to rank of T plus nullity of T. Okay, so here rank of T cannot be greater than 3 because dimension of codomain space, that is R3, is 3. So if rank of T cannot be greater than 3, that is at most 3, then nullity will be 1, that is dimension of null space will be 1. So null space cannot be 0 space, so that's why this map cannot be 1 1. So option A is completely incorrect. Now option B. In option B we have the dimension of the vector space of all 4 cross 4 skew symmetric matrices over the field of real numbers is 10. But we know if V be a vector space of all n cross n skew symmetric matrices over the field R, then its dimension is equal to n times n minus 1 divided by 2, and here n equal to 4. So when we compute this value, that is dimension of V when n equal to 4, then its dimension is equal to 4 times 3 divided by 2, that is 6. So and here we have 10. So it is completely incorrect option. So option B is also incorrect, that is not true. Now we will check option C. In the option C we have F be a given field and A be a n cross n fixed matrix over the field F, and T be a map from MNF to MNF, and in fact it's a linear transformation defined at T at B is equal to AB, where B can be any element of MNF. In fact, and here MNF is the set of all n cross n square matrices over the field F. Okay, and we have to check whether the characteristic polynomial of A is same as characteristic polynomial of T or not. Okay, for this we can take an example. Let n equal to 2, that is A be a 2 cross 2 fixed matrix over the field F, and M2F is the set of all 2 cross 2 square matrices over the field F. Okay, now we'll find the matrix representation of T with respect to standard basis of M2F. Then we'll observe that matrix representation of T is nothing but a 4 cross 4 matrix. So its characteristics polynomial, that is characteristic polynomial of T, has degree at most 4, while the characteristic polynomial of A has degree 2 because A be a 2 cross 2 matrix. So here we have characteristic polynomial of A not equal to characteristic polynomial of T. That is, in general, this is also not true. So that's why our C option is also not true. So now we have only option D. So that going to be correct. So D is our correct answer. Solution of question number 23. Here we have A be a subset of R and A has such kind of real number, those are satisfying 2x minus 1 divided by 2x cube plus 3x square plus x. It is greater than 0. So to evaluate the set E, we have to find such kind of x's. Okay. Let y is equal to 2x minus 1 divided by 2x cube plus 3x square plus x. Then y should be greater than 0. Okay. Now we'll factorize this term, that is we have y is equal to 2x minus 1 divided by x time 2x plus 1 time x plus 1. So we want such kind of x's such that this value should be greater than 0. Okay. Now in the y, numerator part changes its sign around 1 by 2, while the denominator part changes its sign around 0, around minus 1 by 2, around minus 1. So by using real line, we'll observe its sign, that is sign of y. Okay, so firstly we'll plot all the points on the real line, that is minus 1 by 2, 0 and 1 by 2. Okay then. Now as we see in the solution, when x is strictly less than minus 1, then numerator part is less than 0 and also denominator part is less than 0. So overall we have positive. Okay, so basically when x is strictly less than minus 1, then y is positive. Okay, now when x lies between minus 1 and minus 1 by 2, then numerator part, that is 2x minus 1 is negative, while denominator part is positive. So overall we have negative, that is y is less than 0. So between minus 1 and minus 1 by 2, y is negative. Okay, now when x lies between minus 1 by 2 and 0, then numerator part is negative, while denominator part is also negative. Then negative will become positive. So in this range y is positive, that is when x lies between minus 1 by 2 and 0, then y is positive. Okay, now we'll take x lies between 0 and 1 by 2. In this case also numerator part is negative and denominator part is positive. So overall we have negative, that is in this range y is negative. Okay, now when x is strictly greater than 1 by 2, then numerator as well as denominator all are positive. So we have y is positive. So when we take the positive values of y, then we have x belongs to open interval minus infinity to minus 1, union minus 1 by 2 to 0, union 1 by 2 to infinity. That is, our set A is nothing but union of 3 open intervals. That is, A is equal to open interval minus infinity to minus 1, union open interval minus 1 by 2 to 0, union open interval 1 by 2 to infinity. So here we define set A, so we can check given options easily. In the option A we have A is open set. Clearly A is open because A is the union of 3 open intervals, that is 3 open sets. So A is open set. Okay. Now B option is set A is connected. No, it is incorrect, because if A is connected, then A must be an interval, and here A is the union of 3 intervals, so A not connected. Okay, so B option is incorrect. C option says A has 4 boundary points. Clearly here A has 4 boundary points as minus 1 by 2, 0 and 1 by 2. So C option is also correct. D option says A has no isolated points. And clearly A has no isolated point because every point of A be its limit point. So it has no isolated point. So we have only option B is incorrect. So B is our answer. Solution of question number 37. Here we have h be a function defined in terms of another function f on the real numbers. That is, we have hx is equal to fx minus fx to the whole square plus fx to the whole cube. Now we will check increasing and decreasing nature of f, how to effect increasing and decreasing nature of h. Now we know if f be any function defined on some domain, then f is increasing if in fact increasing in the respective domain if derivative of f is strictly greater than 0 in the domain, and f is decreasing in the respective domain if derivative of f is strictly less than 0 in the domain. So firstly we will compute the derivative of h with respect to x. So when we take derivative of h, then we have h dash equal to f dash minus 2f time f dash plus 3 time f square time f dash. So when we solve this, then we have h dash x is equal to 3 times f dash x times fx minus 1 by 3 to the whole square plus 2 by 9. So here we have h dash x is nothing but product of two factors. So in these factors, one factor is purely positive for all the values of fx. Now clearly the sign of h dash x depends on sign of f dash x. So when f dash x is less than 0 in the respective domain, then h dash is also less than 0 in the respective domain. And when f dash is greater than 0 in the respective domain, then h dash is also greater than 0 in the respective domain. So clearly when f is decreasing, then h is decreasing. When f is increasing, then h is increasing. So our option A and C are correct.